I live in a small mountain community where winters come early and hit hard. Snow covers the ridges by late October, and the cold lingers until April. Most of us heat our cabins the old-fashioned way, with wood-burning stoves. It's quiet, peaceful, and honest living. But it only stays that way when people respect boundaries, something our local HOA president, Karen Whitmore, never learned. The setup. A quiet life interrupted. When I retired from the forestry service, I bought a 2-acre property just outside the HOA line. Or so I thought. The listing agent had forgotten to mention that the HOA had expanded its boundary the year before. Within a week of moving in, I got my first notice. Greater than, all exterior firewood stacks must be arranged neatly, covered, and not exceed 3 cords in visible area. Failure to comply will result in fines. A fine, for stacking wood on my own land. I shrugged it off and kept living my quiet life. My cabin was warm, my German Shepherd, Duke, was happy, and I had enough chopped oak to last the winter. But when the HOA sent a second notice, and this time, a $150 fine, I decided I'd pay them a visit. That's when I met Karen. She was exactly what you'd expect from someone who thought HOA president was the same as Queen. Mid-50s, sunglasses bigger than her face, and a permanent frown that could freeze hell over. Greater than, you're disturbing the uniform aesthetic of the neighborhood, she said, glaring at my firewood pile. The neighborhood? I asked. There's only 6 houses within a mile. Half are summer cabins. Regulations are regulations, she snapped. That was the first time I realized Karen wasn't enforcing order. She was enforcing control. The theft begins. Around mid-November, I noticed my firewood stack seemed smaller. At first, I thought maybe I'd miscounted. But after a few days, I saw footprints in the snow, fresh ones, leading to my woodpile and back toward the road. They weren't mine. So, I did what any ex-forester would do. I set a trail cam. The next morning, I checked the footage, and there she was. Karen, in her ridiculous beige parka, backing her shiny Subaru up to my stack and loading my firewood into the trunk. I laughed out loud. She wasn't even trying to be sneaky. She just assumed she could take what she wanted. I went straight to her house the next day. Greater than, Karen, I said, holding up a printed still from the footage. You've been stealing my firewood. She blinked at me innocently. Oh, that. HOA regulations allow for resource sharing during the winter. I assumed you had excess. Resource sharing, I repeated. You mean theft. Watch your tone, Mr. Harlan, she said. We have the right to redistribute community materials as needed. That was her justification. Community redistribution. I called the sheriff's office, but the deputy just sighed. Greater than, she's done this before, he admitted. Last year, she took a generator from another homeowner. We charged her, but the HOA board sided with her. Dropped the complaint. So I realized, the only way to deal with Karen was to let her dig her own hole, and hand her the shovel. The plan forms. By December, Karen had taken at least half a cord of wood from me, enough to heat her oversized house for a month. I didn't mind the loss as much as the arrogance. She waved to me one morning while carrying my own firewood up her porch steps. That's when the idea hit me. You see, when you work in forestry and fire management for 30 years, you learn a few things about how not to start a forest fire, and more importantly, how to create controlled combustion. Now, I wasn't about to actually blow anything up. I'm not a criminal, but I wanted a little smoke and thunder to teach her a lesson. So, I built what I called my hollow log specials. They looked like normal split oak logs, but inside, I hollowed out the center and packed it with black powder substitute, the kind used for old-style muzzleloaders. Legal, but loud. Each end was sealed with resin, and a tiny fuse wire ran through the middle, invisible unless you inspected closely. When the log hit open flame, it wouldn't explode violently, just pop with a loud crack and send a puff of smoke that would make anyone jump out of their skin. I made 4 of them. Then I stacked them right at the top of my pile, easy pickings for Karen. The theft continues. 2 nights later, my camera caught her again. Same Subaru, same smug face. She loaded up the top few logs, exactly the ones I wanted her to take. I waited. For 3 days, nothing happened. Then, on Saturday evening, I heard the echo of a boom from across the valley, followed by the most unholy shrieking you could imagine. I walked outside and saw a faint plume of smoke rising from Karen's chimney. She must have tried to light her evening fire, and one of my specials went off like a cannon. Karen loses her mind. The next morning, I woke to pounding on my door. It was Karen, hair frizzed out, wearing a singed scarf and fury in her eyes. You tried to kill me, she screamed. You sabotaged your firewood. My firewood, I said, pretending to think. The same wood you stole. I was borrowing it for community heating purposes. She shrieked. It exploded. Do you realize how dangerous that was? I couldn't help but grin. Well, that's why I keep my property locked up. Can't have people getting hurt stealing it. She stormed off, shouting that she'd have me arrested for attempted assault. But I knew better, because everything she had came from my pile, caught on camera. The HOA strikes back. The following week, I received an official HOA letter. Due to unsafe storage of hazardous materials, your property violates Section 14 of the Safety Ordinance. You are fined $1,200 and required to remove all combustible items within 72 hours. They were actually trying to fine me for her theft incident. That was when I decided to stop playing defense. I printed out every still image, every timestamp, and the sheriff's prior record of her theft reports. I even included a copy of her screaming on my porch. My camera caught that too. Then I sent it all, not to the HOA, but to the county fire marshal's office and the district attorney. The investigation. 3 days later, 2 county investigators and a fire marshal arrived at my property. Mr. Harlan, one said, we received reports that you may be manufacturing explosives. Not explosives, I said, handing him my camera drive. Just teaching a thief about consequences. They reviewed the footage, and within an hour, they were laughing. She stole booby-trapped firewood. One chuckled. Not booby-trapped, I corrected. Demonstration samples for a controlled burn seminar. She stole them before I could mark them as unsafe. That explanation, combined with the video evidence, turned everything around. The fire marshal went straight to Karen's house. The showdown. According to my neighbor, Karen tried to talk her way out of it, said she was testing firewood safety compliance for the HOA. But the investigators found resin-sealed logs, matching fuses, and powder residue in her fireplace. Worse yet, the HOA's board minutes showed no approval for her resource redistribution policy. That meant she'd been acting entirely on her own, misusing HOA funds, inventory, and authority. Within a week, she was removed as president. Within a month, the county charged her with theft, trespassing, and reckless endangerment. And guess who the county subpoenaed as their key witness? Me. Courtroom fireworks. The trial was short but glorious. Karen tried every excuse imaginable. That I'd set her up, that the wood was communal property, even that I'd planted evidence. The prosecutor played my trail cam footage on the big screen. Karen, in her beige parka, smiling as she loaded wood into her car. Then the porch footage. Her admitting to taking it. Then the explosion report from her chimney. By the end, even the judge was shaking his head. Mrs. Whitmore, he said, this isn't just a case of petty theft. This is arrogance beyond belief. She was fined $5,000, ordered to perform 200 hours of community service, and banned from serving on any HOA board for 10 years. But the best part came after sentencing. The judge looked at me and said, Mr. Harlan, while your actions were unorthodox, I appreciate your restraint. Next time, perhaps just install a taller fence. I smiled. I'll take that under advisement, Your Honor. Aftermath. Winter rolled on. The HOA, embarrassed by the scandal, quietly dissolved 2 months later. Without Karen's leadership, and with several members quitting to avoid scrutiny, the board collapsed. By spring, most of the residents had returned to normal neighborly living. One afternoon, my new neighbor, Marla, stopped by with a basket of muffins. You're kind of a legend now, she laughed. The man who ended the war with firewood. I grinned. I prefer to think of it as smoky justice. Karen's last attempt. You'd think that would have been the end of it, but Karen had one more card to play. She filed a civil suit against me, claiming emotional distress and property damage. Her lawyer tried to argue that I'd created a foreseeable hazard, knowing she might steal again. But my lawyer, an old friend from the forestry department, shut that down instantly. So your client admits she repeatedly trespassed, stole personal property, and then used it without consent? He asked. The judge sighed. Case dismissed. That was the third time Karen had been in court in less than 6 months. After that, she sold her house and moved out of the valley. Word is she's trying to join another HOA in a lakeside community 2 towns over. Those poor souls. Peace returns to the mountain. By the next winter, life was peaceful again. My new woodpile stood tall, neatly stacked, just the way I liked it. Duke and I would sit by the fire at night, warm and quiet, listening to the wind whistle through the pines. I still keep one of those hollow logs on my mantle, a reminder. Not of revenge, exactly. More like a warning. When people take too much, eventually they light their own fuse. Sometimes you just have to let them burn out. Epilogue. The county's visit. About a year later, the county fire marshal stopped by again. Just wanted to thank you, he said. Your little stunt actually inspired us to start a public safety campaign on firewood storage. Called it, Don't Steal What You Can't Burn. He handed me a mug with the slogan on it. I laughed, glad I could help the cause. He grinned. Oh, and Karen sent a letter last month. Wanted to know if she could get her fine reduced. And I asked. We mailed her your mug, he said. Figured it was answer enough. Final reflection. People often ask me if I regret what I did. Maybe a little. I could have just called the sheriff again, or installed a fence sooner. But something about watching a bully get undone by her own greed, it felt right. Karen thought she could take whatever she wanted and hide behind rules. But she forgot something. Rules mean nothing when you don't respect the people around you. Out here in the mountains, we live by a simpler code. You cut your own wood. You stack your own wood. And if you steal another man's fire, you're bound to get burned.